Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the April 28th Electric Toasters meeting. If you would all please focus your screen, focus your vision on my flag, mute yourselves and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This morning, our Toastmaster is going to be Ron Slaybaugh. Please, everybody, help me welcome Ron to Electric Toasters this morning.
Thank you, everybody. Good to see you. Celia, I'm particularly glad to see you as one of our new guests out of Speechcrafts that seems to be making it pretty consistently. Thank you very much. I see that our theme for the day is May Day. And I have to be honest, I'd forgotten or just slipped my mind. Won't go so far to say I'd completely forgotten there was such a thing as May Day. But I did look it up a bit this morning, and to nobody's surprise, I'm sure, the first page that comes up is Wikipedia. I don't want to bore you with the whole thing because it would take more time than what we have today to go over what Wikipedia has written about May Day. Pretty interesting. When I did get down to the bottom about what May Day is in the United States, I did remember partaking in some of these activities as a child where we would go make these bouquets of flowers and put them on somebody's doorstep and knock on the door and run away. And they would open up their door and look, and they would have this beautiful bouquet of flowers. So to some degree, that's a tradition, or at least it used to be in the United States. I don't know if it still is today or not. But it's just, think of May as something to start off spring. Let's go ahead and move on with our meeting. Looks like we have a pretty full agenda today. We don't have a joke of the day, unless anybody wants to share one. Doesn't look like it. That's absolutely fine. Well, at this point, I'd like to turn the meeting over to our general evaluator, Celia.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, and thank you. Today I have a full team of evaluators joining me. My speech evaluator for the day will be Vicki Chatterton.
Okay, thank you very much. Today I am evaluating Mary's speech, and Mary will be presenting level 4 project, manage projects successfully in the innovation planning pathway. She'll be giving her second speech on this project, which will be the recap of how the project went. And I look forward to hearing everything that Mary says. Back to you, Celia.
Thank you, Vicki. Today's awe counter will be Kelly Cordell.
Good morning, everybody. I have my handy dandy sheet here, and I'm going to be counting the filler words that we often pepper our speech with, the uhs and the so's and the likes and repetitions and some other things that might find its way in there. So I will report back later during the meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. Our grammarian today is Matt Parsons.
Good morning. I'll be the grammarian. I'll be listening for grammar and other parts of speech that I might find a need to critique. And also I have a word of the day, rococo. And as an adjective, the definition is excessively ornate or intricate. In Merriam-Webster, that's definition number 2. I found the one to be more useful, one that we might actually apply. It has to do with ornamentation of 18th century artistic styles, but the one that we might most likely be talking about is the one I shared in the chat, excessively ornate or intricate. And that's my role today, and I'll report back at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Matt. And finally, our timer today will be James Reynolds.
Morning, everybody. Yeah, I will be timing today for table topics. It'll be 1 to 2 minutes. So at 1 minute, I give you a green. At 1.5, a yellow. And at 2 minutes, a red. And Mary's speech is going to be 5 to 7 minutes.
Yes.
So it'll be 5 minutes will be green, 6 minutes yellow, and 7 minutes red. And then Vicki's speech evaluation would be 2 to 3 minutes, correct? 2 minutes, green, 2.5 yellow, 3 red, and I'll report back at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Well, we've got a great team of evaluators, and with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay. Thank you, Celia. This time we want to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Mary. Mary Syrie is finishing level 4 in the innovative planning pathway, the final step in the required project, managing projects successfully, is to deliver a wrap-up speech and look back on the project outcome. Please welcome Mary and her speech, Reflections.
Can you believe that we are in the second year of the pandemic? Yeah, I can believe it too. This past year has been the longest year in history. But think about where we were a year ago. We were learning new terms like social distancing. We were asking pithy questions like, why do people have to hoard toilet paper? And Toastmaster clubs around the globe were making the decision, shall we suspend meetings and wait out this pandemic thing? Or shall we bite the bullet, learn how to do online meetings, and continue on as good Toastmasters should? Here in Little Wenatchee, we made the right decision. The 2 Toastmaster clubs, Cascade Speakeasy and Electric Toasters, made the decision to merge and continue having meetings, pushing forward, and here we are today. The weeks went by, the months went by, and a couple things happened. I was at a decision point. I was in level 4 and I needed a project. The pandemic took away my original project, which was having to do with my garment sewing group and the Chelan County Fair. That wasn't going to happen. About the September timeframe, it became apparent that the pandemic was going to last for a while and Electric Toasters needed to pull away from Cascade Speakeasy and reboot, having a meet of their own. That sounded like the perfect project to me. And so the Electric Toasters Club Growth Project was conceived. The goal was to increase membership to 12 members by April 1st, 2021. Today, I'm going to reflect on the project, on developing the plan, building a team, and fulfilling that plan. I've led a lot of projects, and compared to work projects, this was a joy to work on, mainly because I was in control of most of the project level decisions. There's always this one wild card in projects that can derail the best laid plans. And it's not the schedule, it's not the budget, it's not even scope creep. It's the people on the project. You just can't always control people's behavior. But when you've got a dream team like I had, it just makes it so much easier to move a project forward. The team was engaged, they wanted to meet the goal, and they were true stakeholders. I'd like to introduce and thank my dream team. The first person I asked was Ian Adams. He's our president, and I wanted Ian to be the decision maker and the project owner. He was on board with it. The next person was Lloyd Smith. He's our club coach and area director. I knew that I could count on Lloyd to give us good advice and to raise his hand if he saw a yellow or red flag coming up. Then there's Vicki Chatterton. I knew that Vicki had some plans afoot for a Speechcraft event. And I didn't want to overtake that, but I asked Vicki if she would like to join this as a project. I could offer overarching support and facilitation. She was quickly on board too. You can't have a recruitment effort without the Vice President of Education and Public Relations. Kelly Cordell was a key member of this project. And me, I was there to keep the project moving forward, to write the project plan, make sure that we all understood what we were going to do and meet our deadlines. Today, you're seeing the result of that effort. In January, Electric Toasters reconvened on Wednesday mornings. In February, we started Speechcraft. March concluded Speechcraft. And on April 1st, did we have 12 members? No, but we had 11 members. That's a net gain of 3 new members. When you compare that to the rest of District 9, we are an outstanding club. That was a huge effort. Not that there weren't challenges. Vicki had some Speechcraft members lined up, people who said, yeah, that sounded good to them. They'll be members of Speechcraft. But when the time came and they were facing what the commitment entailed, one by one, they started pulling back. I thought it was interesting. One person said that they were just getting burnt out on too much online training. This is where Kelly stepped up to start recruiting at the PUD. Kelly, that was a big effort. I find that kind of work to be exhausting. And you just kept going with recruiting and marketing and making flyers, updating our social websites. My hat's off to you for bringing us our 3 Speechcraft members, Celia, Edri, and Jennifer. But Vicki wasn't quite done yet. Vicki still had to organize the first online Speechcraft event in District 9. And not only that, she developed the agenda for Speechcraft in a 45-minute meeting. Usually meetings are an hour to an hour and a half, but Vicki managed to do this and not skimp on any of the requirements. So I had a dream team. You all put forth a great effort, and I appreciate that. What's next for Electric Toasters? We have another deadline looming, and that's June 30th. Last week, Lloyd sent out an email that summarized, actually it detailed what I'm going to summarize. We could be a distinguished club, and it's not going to take much more effort to do so. Today I finished level 4, and that completion will go towards Electric Toasters. And Lloyd and Kelly, I believe that brings us from 4 goals to 5 goals. That makes us a distinguished club. We have 11 members and we need a net gain of 5. So 2 more members in our club, and we will be the first distinguished club this year in District 9. And that would give us a lot to crow about. So it just takes a little bit more effort, 2 more members, and we're there. Thank you very much for this project and for this opportunity. Now I'll hand it back over to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mary. Excellent recap. Timer, James, could we have 1 minute on the clock? And folks, if you could provide any comments to Mary via the chat feature.
Oh, that's time.
Alrighty, folks, please, if you haven't already, wrap up your comments. At this time, we'd like to move on to the impromptu speaking portion of our weekly tabletop or weekly Toastmasters meeting. Turn it over to our table topics master, Lloyd.
Thank you very much, Ron. I'm still dealing with the idea of Ron leaving a bouquet of flowers on a doorstep and then running off. But I guess it was possible because you claim you did it. But I'm wondering what kind of flowers. You know, I don't. Does poison ivy bloom? I mean, perhaps that was it. But in any event, our theme of the day is May Day, which makes sense because we're coming up on May Day. It seems almost impossible that a third of the year is already gone, third of the calendar year, but it has. Time just races by when you're having fun, I guess. I was thinking about this theme a little bit, and it's not for me anyway, it's not a natural for table topics questions, but we're going to give it a shot. I'm going to try to work in our word of the day, rococo, too. It's one of those words which almost no one uses, but if you do use it, you sound kind of like an intellectual. So it's probably worth the shot, you know, to fit it in. Unless you're talking to an art expert, I'd hold off if you're talking to somebody who knows a lot about art because they do know what rococo means. Well, since Ron is the flower giver, let's go with the first topic for Ron. Ron, you're an experienced speech evaluator. You've even been in the evaluation contest up to the district level. And there are two basic schools of thought about speaking. One is that the plain spoken, conversational, just plain folks type of delivery is the most effective. The other notion is that the formal, highly structured, rococo type delivery, ornamental type delivery is most effective. What do you prefer and why?
Lloyd, I suppose it depends on the topic and the audience. I think both can be effective depending on what the intent or the purpose, the overall objective of that speech is and how that audience is best suited to receive information. With all of that in mind, I consider myself a bit of a comedian. I like to deliver my presentations a bit more off the cuff and somewhat less structured. I find that a bit more engaging for me and perhaps sometimes for the audience. But with that in mind, I have also delivered presentations, longer presentations at technical workshops, primarily through the Washington PUD Association. We have these annual workshops where the operators of various water systems or PUDs around the state come to attend courses to get their continuing education units that they need to maintain their certifications. Those presentations usually are upwards to an hour, and I found that I typically will put together a more structured presentation for those with PowerPoint. And we do have some flexibility, fortunately, which I enjoy. Sometimes they can be interactive, where we invite questions during the presentation, and sometimes we don't. And we'll go ahead and complete the presentation and then have a Q&A at the end. So in summary, back to your question, which way do I like? Again, it depends. I've used them both, and they can both be effective depending on what we're trying to achieve. Thank you, and back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. Definitely true. You need to adapt your presentation to the audience that you have in front of you. It's one thing to talk to a group of 5-year-olds. It's a whole different thing to talk to a group of professionals, say. Although sometimes not. It depends on how close to the open bar you are, I guess. Okay, here in Wenatchee, we don't have any Rococo architecture, probably because the city doesn't go back to the 18th century. But we do have a variety of architectural styles that if you squint just right, you can kind of fit into the notion of Rococo. On the one hand, we have buildings that are very, very plain, very spare design. Think Wenatchee High School, for example. You know, it looks somewhat like a prison. No windows, you know, brick walls, uniform color, the entire thing. On the other hand, think about the old Jones and Jones Funeral Home on Chelan Street. You know, it's a classic, dates back probably to the 1890s or so. And then we have a bunch of things in between. The question is, and I'll send this one to Matt because he came up with the word of the day and deserves the punishment. But a bunch of the older buildings in Wenatchee have been more or less retrofitted to look more modern. Do you think it would be better to strip all of that retrofitting out and put them back in the way they were when they were originally built?
Thanks, Lloyd. I think probably retrofitting back to how they all looked probably isn't a good idea. I think there's value in those that still retain some of those attributes to be able to retain them and keep maintaining those elements and restoring the little bits that need to be restored and that sort of thing. But I feel like if you were to take a building where you've stripped off those elements and then put them back, I feel like it would not look authentic. I mean, you might be able to have it done really well and maybe it would look authentic, but I would say that's probably just not a good plan when you've already converted it away. And yeah, that'd be the approach I'd say. It's valuable to maintain those that you have, and it's a wonderful part of our community, those buildings, but bringing them back after tearing those parts off, probably not a good idea. Back to you.
Okay, thank you. Interesting thought. About when was it? Probably in the late 1980s. What I just mentioned was actually done to a bunch of the downtown businesses. They were sort of restored to their original look, and you can see those as you go by. They're ornate brickwork and that kind of thing. Celia, Ron was talking about May Day activities when he was a kid. Did you have any particular, or do you have any particular memories of May Day when you were a kid, dancing around the pole or whatever?
Thank you, Lloyd, for the question. I do not have any particular memories from when I was young, except for in class preparing May Day vases, so to speak, out of paper.
Yep.
Which you rolled up and perhaps drew on and tied a ribbon around, and then went out in the playground and put some dandelions in and brought it home to your mother that night. That's my only memory of May Day in the past. I do have some recent memories of May Day, which are kind of fun. We have an older woman and gentleman that lived down the alley, and the woman was recently recovering from back surgery. And so the kids and I made a wonderful May Day bouquet for her with cards and homemade vases and delivered it to her doorstep when she got home from work. And she was thrilled about it. She hadn't had a May Day delivery in 30 years since her kids were young. The other recent fun May Day memory that I have is we have a maypole dance down in Leavenworth for, it's not the May Day celebration, but it's the May Fest celebration. And my daughter, being in the local ballet dance group, was able to perform that May Day pole dance one year. So I have some fun May Day memories, not necessarily from my youth, but more so from recent years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Celia. I think all of us remember those construction paper fake vases with the flowers that the elementary school teachers did. Seemed like a big deal at the time. Of course, what they were doing was making a lot out of a very little amount of resources. The first year I was here in Wenatchee, well, we weren't married yet, but my wife and I went up to Leavenworth and to watch the maypole dance thing. And it was really kind of neat because a bunch of these little kids got tangled up. And so it looked kind of like a combination of ballet and over the top rope battle royal, so but I was disappointed the next year it just went like it was supposed to with the little interweaving and all of that. Okay, Kelly, you're the only person here, I think, who has a high fashion connection with your bridal business and all that. Do people buy May Day outfits? That used to be a thing. People would go out and buy, like women, obviously. Well, maybe some guys too, would go out and buy a new dress for May Day. So is that still a thing, or is that a tradition that's faded away?
From my experience, it is a tradition that has faded away. However, May for bridal is pretty huge. And this year has been pretty crazy with all the cancellations and, well, rescheduling from brides and grooms last year. We're seeing a huge flux of people coming in this year. And May and September have been pretty much our really busy months for weddings. I tell you though, speaking of outfits, brides are one thing, right? You hear about bridezillas and, you know, the crazy moms and the jealous sister and things like that. And that still does happen in shopping. We have crying brides and angry mothers and things like that in the store. And I tell you, the whole emotional thing when people are shopping is a little ridiculous, but part of the business. The thing that's really interesting is some of these guys in their tuxes, and they are just a crack up because we have all these higher end kinds of tuxedos. Since Mills Brothers went out of business, we took over their tuxedo line, and they have some really nice ones, the Michael Kors and things like that. And these guys will try on their tuxes and they won't get off the podium. They really enjoy standing on the podium and looking at themselves in the mirror. And they spend more time looking at themselves in the mirror than the brides do. And I just think it's so funny. They just don't get a chance to dress up as much, I think, as the ladies do. And they just think they look pretty dapper in those tuxedos. And it makes me happy that they're able to do that. But it's sort of funny to watch them spin and look at themselves in the mirror kind of thing. So May Day outfits, maybe not so much, but our May brides and grooms, they're looking pretty fine.
Hey, thank you, Kelly. Did all of you notice the technique Kelly used there? She started with the topic, ran out of material, and then simply sidestepped onto something closely related, but not really part of the topic, and then came back with a conclusion that made it look like everything was all tied together. Excellent job. As long as everybody thinks you did a good job until everybody leaves the room, you're golden. Okay. James, you look like a May Day kind of guy to me. Have you ever given a gift to anybody on May Day? I know that's kind of a limited topic, but make out of it what you can.
Thanks, Lloyd. I appreciate that. I don't know much about May Day. I guess maybe I've been living in the dark ages. I was Celia. The only thing I remember as a kid was what she had mentioned. And only after she said that, I got, I think we did that in grade school. I actually was Googling it last night to have some idea of what it was. I've known it now for a couple of years, I think, just because don't they protest in Seattle? It's become a little bit of workers' rights issues in this country sometimes. So the quick answer would be a no, I have not, Lloyd. I've never given a gift. That would be the very simple answer. Yeah, just don't know much about the holiday. Didn't really celebrate it where I'm from, other than what Celia said. And yeah, I was reading last night. It's like what the midpoint between spring and summer or something, or the equinox or something to do with that. And so, yeah, a good question. Hopefully I can use it this afternoon, or I'll use one of those techniques that you were talking about where you divert questions. I have an open house about a roundabout, and I'm sure I'm gonna get some questions. So I'll use that technique that Kelly used to divert off to a different topic. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, James. That is a good technique. Another one, when somebody asks you a question you don't want to answer, is look slightly crazy, and people will back off. They'll think you might be freaking out or something like that, you know. Okay, we are at 7:29. We probably better wrap this up, and so I will turn it back over to our Toastmaster, Ron.
Thank you, Lloyd. And at this point, we're going to kick off the evaluation phase of the meeting. We'll bring up our general evaluator, Celia. Take it away, Celia.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. At this time, I'll call on Vicky to give her evaluation of Mary's speech.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for taking on this project. And it is a great example of how we can take a project that we want to do and turn it into a Toastmasters related project in Pathways. You just so happen to choose something that was Toastmasters related as well for your project. And I truly appreciate that because this was something that needed to be done. And I also appreciate that you are willing to grow as a Toastmaster and try different things. You decided that you wanted to go a step out of your comfort zone and prepare your speech a different way and present it. And you just had one hiccup, which was at the beginning. And I'm not sure if you had practiced your beginning and end, because as speakers, we're taught that if you have a strong beginning and a strong end, then you're good to go. But you just had that one major hiccup. Otherwise, it was a great speech. You were telling us what the project was. You gave us a great recap. You acknowledged your members of your team. And you then told us great things that had happened. Your mechanics of your speech went well also. I enjoy that you stand up for your presentation, and you also are able to be heard. I know that you're not close up to your camera, but you're able to be heard. The only downfall to that is that we can't see your face as much. And you have expression when you give a speech. And sometimes it's difficult to see it when you're not so close up. So my suggestion is maybe utilize your speaking area a little bit more. Since you are standing, get a little bit closer. And I have seen you do that before on our Zoom meetings, is you'll get really close to the camera. And I just love that technique. And so the mechanics of your speech were very well. And as you go through and practice the new form of giving speeches, it will get easier for you to just use those bullet points. And the technique that I know you used of having them posted near you is a great technique when you're speaking online, because we can't see your notes. And if you place them up close by the camera, it looks like you're talking straight to us, straight to the camera, which you were doing. And that was just excellent. Thank you for the recap. And I look forward to seeing what your next project is. And I loved how you ended of, we can meet this goal. We have 2 months and we can do it. So thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you, Vicky, for the evaluation of Mary's speech. At this time, I'll call on Kelly to give us her awe counters report.
Thank you, Celia. We were fairly busy this morning. I haven't done this in quite some time, and I forget how you really have to listen and just be on task. And it's hard on the video, I'm finding it, because in person I can just kind of sit and look down at my notes and just listen, but I'm finding myself distracted by the video. I don't know if I got everything, but here we go. This is what I have. Ron, I didn't catch anything for you. Celia, I caught one or I put them in the same category. Vicky, you had 4 uhs or ums, 1 so, 2 ands, and 1 and so. Lloyd, I caught 3 little ums that made its way in there, 1 but, and some repetition. That it's, they, and then you dropped a in there. James, I caught 8 ums that snuck in there, 1 so, and some repetitions, the, that, and caught 3 yeahs in there. Matt, I caught 1 or and 2 ands, and then a lot of repetitions in there. The I caught that 4 times. It isn't, and I can't read my writing, and a when, and one more that I can't read my writing. So I have some penmanship work to do. Mary, I just caught one so, and a repetition needed two. And I caught myself with one or and I'm sure there's more. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. That was an excellent detailed report. We don't get those very often. You must have been listening really well. That's great. Now I'll turn it over to our grammarian, Matt, for his report.
Thanks, Celia. I didn't really catch any grammar that needed correcting. Lloyd was the prolific user of the word of the day. I think I marked down 5. I'm pretty sure there's probably more. I think at first I wasn't counting very good. So anyway, he had a lot of uses, and I don't think anyone else used it as far as I remember. If I missed a usage, I apologize. So that's the grammarian report. Back to you, Celia.
Thank you, Matt. I just wanted to throw in real quickly that there was a pizza place in Spokane called Rocky Rococo's, which I really loved. And they recently closed, I understand, but I never understood the meaning of Rococo. I guess I've not heard that word before other than in the title of that pizza establishment. James, I'll ask you now to provide your timers report.
Okay, thank you, Celia. Mary, your speech was 7 minutes, 32 seconds. Vicky, your speech evaluation was 3 minutes, 4 seconds. For table topics, Kelly, you came in at 2:07. Matt, you were at 1:18. I had myself at about 1:20-ish, I believe. Ron, you were at 1:40. And Celia, 1:41. And I think that's it. Back to you, Celia.
Thank you, James. Overall, I felt like the meeting was wonderful. We had all of the roles filled with the exception of the joke of the day. And maybe that isn't such a role that's not quite as necessary as others, but I liked the fact that the agenda was full for the most part yesterday, and we weren't scrambling to get folks to do things. That was great. The speeches and evaluations went off without a hitch. The Toastmaster did an excellent job of transitioning the meeting and included appropriate introductions and explanations of roles. So overall, I think that the meeting was an A. And with that, I'll transfer the leader or the role back to Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Celia. Excellent wrap up. Can we have folks vote for their favorite speaker? And I believe that's favorite table topic speaker for the day. Go ahead and send those to, if you don't mind, Celia. That'd be okay. For wrapping that up, just wanted to share with the group, I did pull up Wikipedia, and Bulgaria stands out, have an interesting take on May Day. Read here just this first sentence. On May Day, the Bulgarians celebrate Irmindin. The holiday is associated with snakes and lizards, and rituals are made in order to protect people from them. Every other country where something is written here has to do with love or kicking off spring, but in Bulgaria, it's all about snakes and lizards. I don't know if that's just not necessarily true that they have a lot of snakes or lizards, or perhaps a country that we want to stay away from. One other thing that I'll share that came to mind from your speech, Mary, reflecting back on how long this pandemic has gone on. There's a YouTube channel, a young woman goes by her name. It's Julie Nolke, Nolke. And she has a couple of videos where she speaks to her past self about the pandemic, and they are flippin' hilarious. She's She has close to 1 million subscribers, puts out one video a week that's perhaps 5 minutes or less. And I'd have to guess that she's probably knocking on the door of 6 figures on her YouTube income from her channel. She's pretty hilarious, but I'll watch those particular videos. They're funny. Celia, do we have a winner?
We do. The overwhelming response for Speaker of the Day was Kelly.
Well, good. I voted for Kelly, so I feel like I'm part of the in crowd now. Mary had an announcement she'd like to make.
For next week's speaker, I have a volunteer from Cascade Speakeasy. Jackie Graybill is the president, and Jackie is also the winner of the division's International Speech Contest, and she would like one more opportunity to practice her speech. Would it be okay for Jackie to be a guest speaker next week? I think that you would, lots of head nodding. That's great.
Yeah.
It's a very energetic speech, and those of you who attended Cascade Speakeasy Electric Toaster Combined Meeting, you know Jackie. So this is a lot of fun. I have evaluated her speech at the other club and working with Jackie. And I feel like for her evaluation, would a group discussion work? You should just talk to her. Lloyd, do you think we could pull that off?
Yeah, that would, from the perspective of somebody who's done the contest a lot, that would be really valuable to have a bunch of people, you know, point out things, because people see different things or hear different things when, you know, and yeah, it would.
Okay, I think that'd be a good change for us to have a discussion. And I think it would be helpful for Jackie too, to be able to ask questions and have some interaction.
Yeah,
So
I will. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll put her on the agenda.
Okay. I'll send out the ballot for the International Speech Contest. Well, I'll send it to you, Kelly, and you can put it in your email to everybody so you can see what it is that the judges are actually looking for in the speech. It's a little bit different from the normal speech evaluations that we have.
So I
Great.
suggest that we not have table topics then next week. We just have a group discussion after her speech. Would that? Because
I was curious about that too, Vicki, whether we would have time with the speech plus a discussion afterwards for table topics.
It would really help Jackie to
that's
have
what
a discussion.
yeah, I think that we should do that next week, and that'll switch it up for us. It'll be great.
Yeah, she has a very realistic shot at advancing well into the contest, actually. And part of that is because some of her competition in the district is, in my opinion, not all that strong.
Okay.
And then just a recap as far as our speech crafters. They are signed up on Pathways now and will be marking the first level speeches because they did an icebreaker. They did a evaluation speech at one point. They've done two, a speech and then gave a speech again using feedback. And then they presented a final speech, which they did a bit of research as far as their topic and so forth. Therefore, they have completed level 1 of their path. So we will get 3 more level 1s, which will give us another education mark. So we've got the education portion. It's just we need a couple more members and we can do it.
That will actually, with Mary's speech, that'll actually be 6 goals. If we got 1 more, we'd be select distinguished.
Right.
Got to have the 2 additional members.
And as pointed out, nobody else in the district is distinguished.
Not one other club. A whole bunch of clubs have lots of goals, but not enough members. And this club could be the distinguished club this year.
If we are the first club, I will commit to writing an article for the D9 newsletter so we can sort of bask in our glory.
Yes. Yep. Give a little thought to your friends and your family and your coworkers. Is there anybody who would benefit from Toastmasters, in your opinion? And invite them to a meeting. Face-to-face and invitation is tough to turn down. You know, people can walk right by a poster or whatever, but it's a lot harder to say no to a friend or family member. And a lot of people, you know, when they don't know what goes on, and when they see the actual process, they kind of like it. You know, so, but we're this close to having something really unusual happen for this club.
Okay, sounds like we're about done, and we are right at 7:45 according to the clock in the little bar on my computer here. If there isn't anything else, great meeting everyone, and we'll adjourn the meeting. Okay, thank you. See you next week.
You guys.